Are you on edge? We live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of the Edge of Everyday podcast, which drops bi-monthly on all your favorite podcast platforms. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and tough talk about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. Real talk with real people that sparks provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe. Sandra Bargman, on the edge of every day. Thanks for listening.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome back to the Edge of Everyday, now streaming on all your favorite podcast platforms and at maximizeyou.life. Are you a change maker? Do you walk between worlds, between cultures, between systems? If you answered yes to any of these questions, the Edge of Everyday is the place for you. In a nutshell, this podcast is about pushing boundaries and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we are resistant to change, those places where paradox and contradicting identities live in our beliefs and in our understandings, both individually and collectively. We live in edgy, challenging times. We cannot keep looking away from the ugly, from the difficult, and silence is no longer an option. Life isn't black or white, it's both. And I want to talk about that. I want to face the tension of paradox, and I want to engage in the hard conversations. I want to explore the rough edges between our light-filled brilliance and our dark, shadowy corners. Because the more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So, thanks for tuning in. Recently, I was asked by one of my guests after we finished recording our episode, how was it that I was called to have a podcast? What was the inspiration behind creating the Edge of Everyday podcast? I really appreciated her question and so appreciated her curiosity. And quite simply, I am deeply committed to amplifying voices and stories. What to say, how to say it, and why it matters is at the heart of everything I do and everything I teach. I decided right then to record an episode in which I shared the journey I've taken to the edge of every day. Now I'm going to share a song with you from my solo show.
When does the rainbow touch the storm? When is the light shadow born? Where does the river meet the sea? Who's to say how troubled hearts are set free? The storm of life that we move through to face our fear of living true. Don't be afraid of your whole song. We all have demons. Who's to say they're always wrong? Walking close to the edge, it hurts to be free. Anxious to fly away for now. Who could foresee to embrace all that is me is who I long to be. As anger masks the breath of fear, the dying star consumes the light. Caress the edges lurking near. Thank you. Mr. Ian Herman and I wrote that tune.
Walking close to the edge, it hurts to be free. Oof. Little did I know that when I wrote that song in 2014 for my solo show, and what has become my proverbial platform, The Edge of Every Day, that I would also have a podcast of the same title. So that song, Who's to Say, was written by myself. I wrote the lyrics, and the music was written by my musical director, Ian Herman. And we wrote that song as an opening prayer and an intention-setting song in the Edge of Everyday solo show. But before I launch into how I created the show, let me set the stage with a bit of background leading up to its launch. So the story goes that when I was a little girl, all of 3, maybe 4 years old, I marched into the kitchen with my hands on my hips and announced to my mother that I was here on a mission. I have long known that I was here to contribute to life. I popped out of the womb, singing and acting. I danced, I played the violin. My creative expression was very supported within my biological family. And of course, this work became my first profession. And I was also the kid on the edges of groups, off in the corner, that had the antenna, and I could see and read the energy of the room. As important as performing was to me, so too was my spiritual questioning and my musing. I was and am voraciously curious and constantly learning. And it was in my early 40s that I had the undeniable call to move further into a more service-oriented life. In 2005, I was accepted into the interfaith program at the New Seminary in New York City, the first interfaith seminary in the United States, started by Rabbi Gelberman, John Mundi, and Swami Satchidananda in 1980. I was ordained at St. John the Divine in 2007 and went on to another seminary journey at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary, also in New York City, for advanced certification in spiritual counseling. It was during my seminary journey that the idea for my company, Sacred Stages LLC, was sparked. This company would couple and synthesize my performing life with my spiritual leadership, or as I love to say in my sassy elevator speech, where I can serve and lead in a spiritual capacity and shake my booty on stage. It was time for me to step out of the proverbial spiritual closet, find my own voice, not the voice of a character I played, my own, and to share that wisdom and my truth. And it was solidified with my commitment to walking the edges of both of those communities. And while I adored studying all the world traditions and have always been very curious about other paths and cultures, I was quite clear that organized religion was not for me. So where would I go for an expansive experience and to find community? I was given a really great image, the stage as my altar. It was then that I really connected to the ancient roots of theater and spirituality as being very entwined, with the understanding that actors were shamans, channeling the gods and goddesses and bringing back wisdom from the other side. Sacred Stages is my LLC with a mission to support seekers on their journey of self-discovery and connection to life. Sacred Stages is both a venue through sacred theater and media and an internal process using actor-inspired techniques for personal insight and transformation. Grounded in mythology, ritual, music, and movement, Sacred Stages utilizes the venue of live theater to explore ancient and diverse spiritual wisdom in new and exciting ways. So, what was the initial inspiration for the Edge of Everyday? Well, it was a combination of a few ideas. The first one will appeal, I think, to the science geeks like me. My husband, who is a scientist by training, and I were taking a driving day trip one afternoon, as we love to do, and we happened upon an old abandoned church. We love old churches. I said, wouldn't that be a great place for a community center? We could do theater, we could host gatherings and salons. And my husband asked me what I would call it. And the immediate response that popped to my mind was the Edge. He thought for a moment and said, well, in that case, I would call it the Edge Effect. Well, it turns out the Edge Effect is a scientific term. It's when two very different ecosystems come together, a forest or a field, for instance, and it's where they meet that we find the most chaos and also the most diversity and creativity. And I thought, well, isn't that exactly like all of life? When two very different ideas or belief systems or cultures collide, or the discovery of holding two complex and differing understandings at the same time. If we're willing to move through that chaos with its messiness and potential pain, we can find the creativity. We find expanded insight, deeper relationships, personal transformation. All of life is an edge, and that, quite honestly, was the original spark. But also at that time, I was attuning to the ever-growing polarized political landscape, the black and white othering that was certainly happening here in the United States and, of course, around the globe. And personally, I was becoming aware of conflicting internal self-awareness, actually self-identities that had come into conflict. On the one hand, I was in a very loving partnership with my husband, and I loved our life, our home life, him. But at the same time, I also felt, like I think many women do, that I had sacrificed potentially too much of the free-spirited, independent, creative life that I cherished. So the muse had caught hold, and I started to envision a show that explored those internal edges, those places of resistance to change, those places of fear where paradoxes live in not just our beliefs, but my beliefs and understandings, more often than not, unconsciously. My desire was to share spiritual wisdom alongside of inspiring the courage to look within with real vulnerable honesty into those places we don't really want to see. So how did I share my vision of what the edge is with my audience? Well, there are a variety of ways and understandings of the edge that I wove into the show. First, I used, of course, the imagery of the cliff, the risk-taking, the leaping off into the unknown and trusting the universe to provide the net or the safe place to land, the embrace of self-trust. So deeper into the show, I did a short guided meditation, ending with these words. What edge are you resisting in your life right now? Feel the tension between choice and choosing. Neither choice is right or wrong, good or bad. What will you choose? Come to the edge, your edge. Go ahead. Jump. I talked about relationships, the spiritual polishing of relationships, and the power of projection. I chose a very intense song called The Holy Secret by Georgia Stitt that talked about a relationship growing apart, and that the holy secret within this relationship was the tension that, quote, you've got to fall to pieces to let the pieces grow. I love that. I explored the edge as being the meeting place of polar opposites, the principle of polarity, and the place of tension between them: anger, joy, male, female, rational, intuitive, and the undercurrent of desire to balance or synthesize these polarities. This duality emphasizes the need to both create unique, distinct elements within a system and then synthesize those elements into a cohesive whole. This applies to individuals, societies, and to our collective. I talked about the light and the shadow, the subconscious and superconscious. I found a haunting and unknown song called Dark by Edward Grimes, or Grains, and I coupled it with a very short but powerful mythical poem by Opal Whiteley that I found in Women Who Run with the Wolves, one of my favorite books by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And here it is from my show.
Today, near eventide, I did lead a girl who had no seeing, a little ways into the forest where it was darkness and shadows were. I led her to a shadow that was coming our way. It did touch her cheek with its velvety fingers. And now she too does have likings for shadows. And her fear that was is gone.
And of course, unspoken but energetically woven in through song choices, the highest self, spirit and flesh, humanity, with breath as the edge point, that we are made of both earth and stardust. I structured the show in a very unique fashion. I created what I called a cabaret ritual. Because of my deep love of ritual and ceremony, and because I knew I wanted the experience of this show to be or to feel transformational, I crafted it as a ritual. I blended or merged the intimate venue of cabaret with the spiral experience of ritual rather than a timeline arc. And I added some over-the-top performance art elements, and I dubbed it Cabaret Ritual. The performance art aspect was completely fun, particularly outrageous and playful. So the lights go out, the audience is welcomed, and I'm introduced. I enter through the audience, as you do in most of the New York City cabaret rooms, and I entered dressed like a full-blown drag queen. I had this dramatic, full-length black coat on and a huge, enormous hat that I actually made. I'll include a pic of it in the show notes. The base was a big, round Asian straw hat that I found in Chinatown. And on top of it, I built a wire crown, and I wove into that crown big sunflowers and vines, and a friend of mine made styrofoam bees and dragonflies, and we put them on wire so that they would look like they were flying and buzzing above my head. And I had a staff. with an actual plastic owl, one of those ones that goes out into the fields, on top, to which I added a rhinestone unibrow, of course. And it was insanely over the top and great fun. But as the show progressed, the depth of the undercurrents of these seemingly ridiculous choices was slowly revealed as I shared more vulnerable and poignant experiences. The hat is my priestess hat. The crown I attached was painstakingly wrapped with silk ribbon, and with each twist around the wire, a prayer was offered. And with each rhinestone hot glued onto that hat, a prayer was offered. I had chosen those three animals, owl, bee, and dragonfly, for the Native American wisdom they imparted. The owl for the medicine of the messenger and the wisdom of comfort with and in the dark. And it also invoked the power of Athena and her ability to connect to what is seen and unseen, the edge through owl. The medicine of dragonfly teaches life is an illusion, and we must become comfortable with change. For as we know, change is the only constant in life. And of course, B was for community and connection and communication. And the bee is a sacred symbol within the goddess tradition. And it was a connection of the sacred geometry of the bee honeycomb with Metatron's cube, or the flower of life. Now, creating the show was also a personal ritual for me, to connect with sharing my own voice in the world in a bigger way, bridging my old performing life to the newer one that was emerging. One of the powers of the show was the comedy, the irreverence and playfulness combined with moving into more depth. The power of that, the edge of that, was disarming and invitational. I mean, I had the community meet and greet song. It was the third one in. After the opening prayer song that I played for you, this meet and greet song, Be My Little Baby Bumblebee. A Doris Day, well, it's not a Doris Day song, but Doris Day sang it in the movie, an old musical. I had the audience members agreeing to come up on our little itty bitty cabaret stage to pretend to be bees doing the waggle dance. Yes, the waggle dance. That's an actual scientific term for how bees communicate. The audience went berserk, and clearly there was no preciousness around this spiritual content. And side note, now you know why I say we are live in the hive with whomever my guest is. It comes back to the bee and the wisdom or the medicine of connection, communication, and community. At its core, at its deepest message, the edge of every day is an invitation to explore wholeness through a variety of understandings about what an edge is, by being willing to explore the spiritual polishing of being in relationships, to look within, to acknowledge the parts of the self that have been pushed into the shadows, to have the courage to explore grief and sadness. Those are just to name a few of the rough edges. It's an exploration of 3D and a directional towards 5D. So let me share more about the ritual aspect and why I chose to craft it as such. As I said, I wanted a transformational experience with the show, and I wanted something unique, a hybrid, a boundary-pushing form of music theater. But I also knew we were getting into some very tumultuous times And I wanted to equate chaos with transformation, rather than it being only something painful and something to be feared. And it made sense to me that the ritual format helped to forward that understanding, that it's within chaos that we find the most creativity and ultimately transformation. So for those of you who are interested, there are a number of clips from the solo show on my YouTube channel, Sandra Bargman, On the Edge of Every Day. And you can purchase a CD of the live recording of the solo show at Amazon and at CD Baby. So how did the solo show become a podcast? Well, fast forward to 2019. And the concepts put forward in the show continued to resonate deeply, for me, certainly, and what I was seeing out in the world. And by then, it was overwhelmingly clear to me that the edge of every day is my platform. It is the genuine way through which I see life and how I walk through the world. And at that time, the collective shadows of racism and homophobia and misogyny to all women, minorities, and Mother Earth had really cranked into high gear. I was contemplating updating the show to have a more pronounced political edge, if you will. And then COVID hit. All of my stage work went poof. All of my ritual design with my wedding couples went poof. But the silver lining of Zoom began to emerge. And then I met a podcaster who emphatically urged me to consider hosting my own show. Juxtapose that to the internal calling of COVID that I was hearing, and that many of us on the planet were hearing, that it was truly time to let go of all that was standing in the way of me sharing myself, my voice, more powerfully in the world. COVID, I felt, was a massive call forward and a profound polishing for humanity, truly. I was resistant to doing a podcast. I never listened to them, and I felt like we needed another podcaster, like we needed a hole in the head. Of course, that was the edge of fear, my own fear of sharing my voice. Once I admitted that to myself, I started to imagine doing a podcast. And I knew that I wanted to continue to assist expanding people's understanding of their edges, of their complexities, those tension-filled internal polarities that, when recognized and embraced, can trigger healing and acceptance of both self and of others. These are the kinds of courageous conversations into which I invite people. My podcast is based on the concepts I explore in my one-woman show of the same name, The Edge of Every Day. And they are the concepts by which I live and through which I teach, counsel, minister, and perform. What are those concepts? Admitting complexities and exploring paradox. Being real, truth-telling. Yes, truth can be ugly and raw, but the heartbreak of truth is a better experience than happiness from lies, fear, or delusion. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. That marvelous quote by feminist Gloria Steinem highlights the dual nature of truth. It can be both challenging and liberating. So you see, even truth has an edge within. So I'll close today's episode with another song from the solo show, one that truly says it all. This number sums up the message of the show, and it encompasses my entire platform. Everyday people with my own spoken poetry entitled Lean In, Edgy Ones, woven into the song. But before I do that, I want to thank a few people. I began my podcast in October 2021. I want to thank Sam at talkradio.nyc, which is where I began. Next, I want to thank my extraordinary guests. You inspire and you uplift and you expand me and everyone who listens. I want to thank my amazingly talented virtual assistant, Brittany. I want to thank my friends and colleagues at MaximizeU.life, which is one of the homes of the podcast now, Sal and Laura Selly. And most importantly, I want to thank you, my loyal listeners. Creating this podcast and having these conversations has changed my life in immeasurable ways. And I couldn't do it without all of you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous. Till we speak again, take good care.
Sometimes I'm right, but I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my songs. The butcher, the banker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in, 'cause I am everyday people, yeah. There is a blue one who can't accept the green one, but living with the black one, trying to be a skinny one. Different strokes for different folks. I am no better, and neither are you. We're all the same, whatever we do. You love me, you hate me, you know me, and then you can't figure out which bag I'm in. 'Cause I am everyday people, yeah. There is the long one who doesn't like the short one for being such a rich one that will not help the poor one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on, and scooby-dooby-dooby, ooh, sha-sha. Lean in, edgy ones, people every day. It's time to make a pledge rerun. It's admission day. You're standing on the ledge, you're done, wanna back away. Queen bee, you've just begun, now's your break of day. Life isn't black, no, and life isn't white. It's gray or it's beige, so tasteful too, right? Dualistic nature balance, darkness and light. Cozy up chaos, 'cause you're on the launching site. That which is that, oh, and that which is this, it's all part of the whole. Judge no thing is less. Where sadness meets love and where life meets death, understand the holy contradictions are all blessed. This judgment of every relentless inspection, seduce contradiction. You are a complex one. Resist your inheritance of ghost-like perfection. You merit self-romance, not Facebook post. Like reflection. Don't hide your madness, you are a magician. Your shadow enhances the color condition. What's made you without minor, you jazz musician? Blur all of your lines and blow off the audition. Be choice, be life, be divine dichotomy. Your queen bee will lead you to your own royalty. Be bold, be dazzled, you are the bee's knees. Befriend all the others, 'cause the others are we. Be still beating heart, it's a world relative.
Love dares you to change, edge unfurled. Forgive that which separates, rise above. Forgive, boom, boom, babe, give love, be love. So child, remember, bring back your wild. Spellbind, flame the ember, be changed, beguiled. All of life is an edge, move into communion. We're all everyday people in need of reunion. I am everyday people, yeah, yeah. There is a red one who can't accept the white one, who can't accept the yellow one, who can't accept the black one, who can't accept the blue one, who won't accept the green one, for living with the black one, trying to be a skinny one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on. Scooby-Dooby-Dooby. We got to live together, 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 together. Thank you. Thank you. We are all everyday people. We are one everyday people.